Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another live episode of the Format Podcast. That's right. That's right. Special Thursday night episode today. Still gonna do the Saturday night episode this weekend, but I haven't put out anything for a few days, and since I guess last Saturday's live, so I wanted to come out and give my thoughts on some of the stories that I thought were interesting, and hopefully you think are interesting as well. So let me just give a few minutes, see who comes in the chat, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started here. If you're coming in the chat, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you like the show, and yeah, let's get right to it. So, we got some good topics today. Obviously, today is Thursday, and normally I would be doing a Throwback Thursday episode. And well, it looks like fate kind of decided what the topic of that was going to be, and as you see there, that is going to be our first topic. Legendary Bill Walton, and we'll get to that. But yeah, have some interesting topics here and some thoughts I want to share. So at this point, what I'm going to do is get started. But before we get to those topics, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right, just another friendly reminder. If you're here in the chat, please make sure you give us a like. All that stuff helps us, helps YouTube hit the algorithm, helps us push out the show to more people. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow here. Make sure you like it and make sure you share it. All right, cool. So this one, I don't even know how I came upon this. I think what happened was I was going through my playlist a few days ago, and I was looking for a podcast to listen to. Because I'm always trying to listen to stuff. I'm trying to learn about the podcast business, listen to successful podcasts, hear what they're doing, watch what they're doing. If it's on YouTube, see kind of what they're using to have success and what type of ideas and segments and blah blah blah. Looking for major stories and hear what other people think about it and develop my own thoughts on it. And so I'm going through my podcast playlist, and I see a recent episode from Club 520 on the Volume Podcast Network. And Club 520's got Jeff Teague and a couple other guys on there. And they ended up having an interesting discussion that kind of started out as Wake Forest, all-time Wake Forest basketball versus all-time Georgetown basketball. And of course, Jeff Teague is Wake Forest alum. Quick side note, I thought it was funny that they were going down the list of, I guess somebody rated the top Wake Forest players of all time. And I think so they rated Randolph Childress ahead of Jeff Teague, and Jeff Teague was like, "What? Oh, basically like hell nah." And I'm like, Jeff Teague, you crazy, man? Randolph Childress was such a monster at Wake Forest. You must be crazy. I think he forgot how great, even though he went to his school, how great Randolph Childress was at Wake Forest, man. I remember that. That was I want to say the 1995 ACC tournament. 1995 ACC tournament. Yep, when Randolph Childress set the 3-game scoring record. I think he scored about 108 points in those 3 games, and he was just going insane. He was just hitting from everywhere. There was the one where he crossed over Jeff McInnes, made him fall, pointed at him, and then pulled up and hit the 3. I was like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. That's what you get growing up in Big East and ACC territory, right? Watching Georgetown and University of Maryland and all those other great teams, North Carolina and Duke and Villanova and St. John's and all. But anyway, yeah, so Jeff Teague, he was like, he thinks he was better than Randolph Childress. And I'm like, nah. But anyway, so they got into this really interesting discussion, and it was something that I had never even heard brought up before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the clip from it, and then we'll come back and talk about it because it really surprised me and it got me to thinking. So check this out.
Wake Forest better than Georgetown?
I'm taking y'all.
I am.
Y'all started 5 way better than there.
Y'all just don't have an AI though. Y'all don't have an impactful nigga like that. Disrespectful.
Chris Paul just as good as Allen Iverson, bro.
Oh.
Fuck no.
For real, bro.
Chris Paul is one of the greatest.
Better than Allen Iverson.
Chris Paul is one of the greatest point guards to ever bless the court.
His career is better than Allen Iverson.
I ain't rolling, bro. AI.
He ain't more influential than AI. No way.
That matters, though.
No way.
Nobody wants to be like CP3.
Career?
Nobody wants to be like CP3, but
nobody
want to wear.
I ain't gonna lie, his J's was fresh as fuck on ESPN Countdown the other day. I don't know what ones.
Chris
Paul's shoe game has been.
Yeah,
we've been knowing that.
He's a Chico because he got Jordan, but I'm saying Chris Paul could never come. Like if Chris Paul had a Reebok, we wouldn't look at it like the AI question Reebok. It's a lot that plays into that. The blue toe question is
the red toe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Even
bro. So
AI at Georgetown in the 11s, in the concourse.
Bro. So
niggas still rock that. It don't match at all, and I'm still fucking with it.
Yeah. Chris Paul is one of the best pure point guards to ever bless the court for sure. Turn my nigga Tyson Chandler and David West up. Much respect to him.
So who career was better though? I think
bro.
AI was more influential for sure.
On and off the court, bro.
But as a basketball.
Yeah.
So you hear Jeff Teague apparently is trying to make some weak argument that Chris Paul had a better career than Allen Iverson, and I'm gonna get to that, and I absolutely disagree. To Mandel Mel, I think Randolph Childress was ahead of his time, but I think the other thing was he had some injuries early in his NBA career. I think he was with Detroit and Portland, if I'm not mistaken, but he had some injuries, and he was never necessarily an elite athlete at the time either. And you had all those crazy point guards at the time in the league. And so he wasn't able, and that was still when you had to play defense. So he couldn't deal with those guys. So he wasn't able to find a spot. But I think he had some success playing for some years overseas. But yeah, Randolph Childress, man, monster. Somebody, if you don't know who he is, go back. His son plays overseas too, Brandon Childress. But anyway, go back, look on YouTube and check it out and watch what Randolph Childress was doing to people. Animal. But anyway, so I was never a huge fan of Allen Iverson, even though, I watched him when I was in high school, and I was in high school in Maryland, and he was right there at Georgetown. So I basically got eyes full of Allen Iverson constantly. Obviously, Big East, got to watch those ESPN Big Mondays, Allen Iverson and Georgetown versus Kerry Kittles and Villanova, or Allen Iverson and Georgetown versus Ray Allen and UConn, or Allen Iverson and Georgetown versus Syracuse and what's my man that John Wallace. Like that was an absolutely incredible time in the Big East and in the ACC, man, watching that. I remember Steph Marbury, I want to say like his second or third game, it was in the preseason NIT, and he matched up against Georgetown and Allen Iverson, and that was an incredible match. I think Marbury had 13, and obviously he's a New York guy, so playing in the Garden was nothing new to him. He had just won the city championship the year before in Madison Square Garden. He had like 13 points, and Allen Iverson had 23. So it was great, man, just watching Allen Iverson at Georgetown. He was a freak of nature, and obviously he went on to be even more so in the NBA. But yeah, AI was an absolutely incredible player, and just you're watching this guy and the stuff that he was doing. I mean, this guy is 5'10", 5'11" max, 165 pounds, and just explosive leaper, one of the fastest players I've ever seen in the open court. Obviously an incredible handle, phenomenal scorer. This is how good the guy was. Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, said, "We're all fortunate that Allen Iverson isn't 6'5". Otherwise, it would have been over for the league. Pack up and goodbye." That was kind of along the lines, I remember Chuck Daly had said when he was coaching Isaiah Thomas. He said, if Isaiah Thomas is 6'5", we might be looking at the best player who ever played. And so, to get that kind of lofty praise from those level of guys, is, that tells you what a special player Allen Iverson was. Now, is he the best small guard ever? I tend to, me personally, take Isaiah Thomas over him just by a little bit, but that's a personal thing. But yeah, Allen Iverson, you saw on the clips there what an incredible athlete he was. He's one of the best players ever, obviously. At his size, just the things he could do. I mentioned the speed, the explosiveness, but the way that he could take over. And it wasn't taking over like Steph takes over by bombing away from three, right? Steph will hit the threes and demoralize you that way. But Allen Iverson, again, 5'10", 5'11", 165 pounds soaking wet, he'll go in amongst the trees and he'll finish with punishment. They'll put him on the ground, he'll finish and he'll get the and one. Like that guy, his physical toughness was off the charts. Now, I assume a lot of that comes from being an all-state football player in Virginia. Quick side note, he was supposed to go to Notre Dame and play quarterback. Woo-wee. And Randy Moss was supposed to be his wide receiver. So imagine that. But of course, both of those guys got in trouble, so it didn't work out. But I think things worked out for both of those guys just fine, wouldn't you say? Anyway, yeah, the way Allen Iverson could take over and just take the physical punishment that he took was insane. And how he could carry a team, that's what really got to me about Allen Iverson. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's not that serious. Imagine Allen Iverson playing in today's league where you can't touch him. Nobody could stay in front of him. The fouls that he was getting back then, he would get guys thrown out for flagrant twos today. Man, because I think his highest was about 33 and a half points per game. So that'll probably get him up around 40 in today's game because he would be a better shooter because he would shoot more threes. And then again, you can't put your hands on him and you can't be physical with him. So who's going to be able to stay in front of him? There's no player with that kind of speed and explosiveness in today's game at the point guard position. There just isn't. So yeah, Allen Iverson in today's game would be bonkers. Where was I? So yeah, this is a guy who he won the MVP. He has, I believe, the 7th highest scoring average ever at about 26 and a half. And Allen Iverson could flat out get it done. And on top of that, he took a marginal team to the NBA Finals. Right now, they built that team around him and his style of play, an outstanding defensive team that could really lock you down. And obviously, they're going to execute in the half court and let him do his thing. Right, Larry Brown, one of the best coaches of all time. Truly believe that. And this is another side note. I believe Larry Brown, at least X's and O's wise, I think he's a better coach than Popovich and than Phil Jackson because he never had the type of talent that those guys have, but he was able to, he get out coach him. And we saw what he did to the Lakers with Phil Jackson in the finals in 2004. Anyway, yeah, so Allen Iverson took a marginal team to the NBA Finals, and he was able to get a game off the almost invincible Lakers. And so, I mean, that says a lot to me. Now, there you go. It's not that serious. He really needed more help. No, I'm with you. Who do we know that needs more help all the time? But you know what? In fairness, though, Allen Iverson is a guy that I don't think he wanted more help. I think he loved the way that team was built around him because, I mean, they call him Bubba Chuck for a reason. He was a Chuck, and I don't think he was looking. He could pass it if he wanted to. I don't think he was looking to do a whole lot of that. He wanted to demoralize you and destroy you by scoring the rock, and he did that as well as just about anybody who ever played. So Chris Paul, the other guy in this discussion, he's different, right? He is very different, and for whatever odd reason, I'm not a huge fan of his either. He's a true point guard, which is odd. Why? Why is that odd? Because I'm a guy that I love a true point guard and a true floor general and the way a true floor general plays the game. I love the fact that Chris Paul is a guy who he delivers the ball, he runs the offense, he gets everybody where they need to be, and he can do his thing without having to score the rock the way Allen Iverson did. So I understand that. And normally I prefer them the way that Chris Paul plays versus the way Allen Iverson plays. And he's an all-time great at his position. He is. But he's, what is he, currently 3rd all-time on the assist list. But to me, here's the thing, and this is kind of interesting with a lot of these players now. He's 3rd all-time on the assist list, but it's taken him 19 years to get there. And so I'm like, as great as he is, how much of these numbers are longevity, right? Because we saw, look where Magic was on the assist list, all time, number 1 all time when he retired, and he did that in 12 years. So I'm just like, Are these guys that are putting up these numbers today as great as we think, or is a whole lot of that based on longevity? Now, yeah, you have to be great to do it, but I think longevity really plays a role. And anyway, for whatever reason, when it comes to Chris Paul, there's always some reason why things didn't work out with him, whether it's injuries or what. It's just a really weird phenomenon everywhere he's been. Whether it was obviously he got to the finals a couple years ago in Phoenix, and Greek Freak and Milwaukee end up beating them. They won the first 2 games, and then Milwaukee wins the next 4. Something was wrong there. When he was in Houston with James Harden, he got hurt. That was another chance, another opportunity to get to the NBA Finals. He got injured and missed Game 7, and of course, Golden State goes on and wins that one. It's just weird. Always something with the Clippers. Just like is there a black cat running around Chris Paul or something like that? Like, there's always something going on that keeps him from getting to the place where he needs to be to have that ultimate level of success. And you can tell he wants to win so bad, but for whatever reason, it just isn't happening for him. And I can't figure out exactly why that is. So anyway, here's the thing. When it comes to the Allen Iverson, Chris Paul debate, and this is my thing when it comes to basketball, you got to put 2 guys, if they're relatively similar in size and position, against one another. You just, because we can say, oh, this guy got that number, this guy got this number, whatever, look at all the advanced metrics, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, if you say, all right, put prime Chris Paul versus prime Allen Iverson, who's giving who to work, right? Who's busting who down? I think we know the answer to that, right? CP3 will be like the rest of Allen Iverson's defenders. He becomes a victim. I mean, that's just what it is. And we're not talking, when we say better, we're not talking about the off the court impact on the game or on fans, because we know obviously that Allen Iverson's off court impact culturally is much, much greater than that of Chris Paul, fully aware. But we're just talking about between the lines and who had the better career as a basketball player. I think it's Allen Iverson. That's my opinion. What we got? Yeah, definitely it's not that serious. Prime AI all day. I think Chris Paul would have no chance whatsoever of holding that guy. I think he would get destroyed by prime Allen Iverson. Even though at his best he's a really good defender, Chris Paul, that is, but he can deal with Allen Iverson. That dude is a force of nature. So Chris Paul, he's great, right? He's great, but Allen Iverson pretty much changed the point guard position in the modern NBA, right? He made it okay to be a small, high volume scoring guard who doesn't average a great number of assists and really run the offense. He did that to the point that Larry Brown took him off of the point guard duties, put him at shooting guard, and had Eric Snow there running point, because he's like, yo, we got a guy like this who could put the ball in the basket. We got to put him at his natural position, even though he's too small. You got to put him at shooting guard, and then we'll work on the rest of the defensive rotations and the scheme to be able to help him so that he doesn't get taken advantage of due to his size. Chris Paul is great, but I don't even have the guy in my top 5 point guards all time. I just don't. My top 5 point guards, if you're asking, Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Gary Payton Sr., obviously. Well, Gary Payton Jr., yeah, his son's Gary Payton III. So the glove. And yeah, so obviously, quick breakdown on that. I don't think there's any question whatsoever that Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard who ever played. That doesn't need explanation. Isaiah Thomas, I think, was incredible. He could defend. Obviously, he could pass. Obviously, he could score. And he is, he's the first small guard to lead a team to championships, and he led them to back-to-back championships. And the Lakers got extremely lucky that it wasn't a three-peat. Those bad boy Pistons were in the finals 3 straight years. They got extremely lucky. So I think Isaiah Thomas is that dude, second best point guard of all time. John Stockton, third best point guard of all time in my estimation, simply because the numbers are so far and away obscene. Like, nobody's gonna catch him. Nobody's gonna catch him. The numbers are just that good. They're that far out ahead of everybody. Way out in terms of steals, and way out in terms of assists. Just nobody close. Next, Jason Kidd. I think Jason Kidd was almost perfect. He was like a smaller Magic. He could, at his physical prime, he could score the ball a little bit. I think his highest was maybe 15 or 16 points a game, but he was a true distributor. I think he's second second on the assist list, if I'm not mistaken. So he was a true distributor. He could really defend. He had good size. He was a really good rebounder at the position. And this is not like what we see from some guys now in terms of, trying to juice the stats for rebounds. He was like a legit tough rebounder, excuse me, in the crowded paint in a different era, right? So none of this kind of other guys boxing out and moving their guy out of the way so you can get the rebound, so you can get a triple-double. I'm talking about real legitimate triple-doubles when it was real hard to do in a different pace and a different era. So that's why I got Kidd. And Gary Payton, the glove, the reason I have him up there is because he could score, he could pass, and he was such a lockdown defender, 9-time first-team All-NBA. And if you go back and look, even at the 96 finals, he didn't get to defend Michael Jordan fully, I think, until game 4. And the next 2 games, he really, I'm not going to say he locked him up. Nobody's locking up Mike, but he controlled him and made Mike have a really, really tough time. Gary Payton is probably maybe the 3rd best perimeter defender of all time. So maybe it's Mike and Scotty and then Gary Payton. Like, he was that good. So that's my top 5. So I can't put Chris Paul again ahead of any of those guys on my point guard list. So but back to Allen Iverson versus Chris Paul, I think that even though CP3 played a lot longer, I still don't think he's had the better career. Like, I can't see that. And I know that we love stats, so I'm gonna put the stats up here side by side. And this is just something to take a look at. So we see obviously that Allen Iverson, the far superior scorer, Chris Paul, the better distributor. But really, Allen Iverson, I think, as a rookie, averaged about 7.5 assists per game. So if that was really what he was supposed to be doing and being the point guard and being a traditional point guard and distributor, he could have done that. But again, like I mentioned, Larry Brown moved him to the 2 guard to really take advantage of his insane scoring ability. And if he was in a role where being the distributor was his primary role, he would have been able to do that. But that wasn't his role. Now, on the flip side, if you move Chris Paul to shooting guard and make him the primary scorer and have him carry the offensive load of your team, could he do that? I doubt it. So if Allen Iverson could do what Chris Paul could do, but Chris Paul can't do what Allen Iverson did, how's Chris Paul the better player? See, so this is, to me, this is the simplest way to look at that. So at the end of the day, Jeff Teague, I got to disagree with you, man. I know that's your Wake Forest brother and all that, but Chris Paul has not had a better career, nor is he a better player than Allen Iverson. That's just it.